it's Cherie here. Today I'm going to create a layout using these awesome Neat and Tangled goodies. Now I've got the Together stamp set. I'm going to use that one as my title, and I'll pick one or two of the other ones to use on the page as well. And I've also got this awesome die. It's the Heart of Gold die, and I'm thinking I'm going to cut this out just on some white cardstock, and then I'm going to emboss it with some gold tinsel embossing powder. This is Ranger embossing powder. I think that'll be a bit of fun, so I'll get into it and show you what I'm going to do with this page. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've used that Heart of Gold die and some plain white cardstock to cut that shape out using my Big Shot. And now I've just gone right over the top of that with the Versamark ink pad, and I'm sprinkling that really pretty glitter embossing powder over the top. So it's a little bit fiddly. I've got to make sure I get a nice coverage, and silly me keeps putting my fingers on it, and so then I have to reapply a little bit more. So I do get there in the end, and I'm using my snappy tray to catch all of that embossing powder in so that I can easily tip it back into my little jar later. So I'm pretty happy with that coverage now, I think. Oh, just a little bit more. I've just touched that bottom corner there, so shaking off the excess as well. And then I can get my heat gun out and watch the magic happen. It's always fun playing with embossing powders, and I don't think I've used a glitter one before. So I'm going to just hold that in place with my tweezers just to make sure it doesn't blow off that little craft mat. And you can, I don't know if you can see it, I'm sorry my heat gun is a little bit in the way, but you can see that shimmery gold starting to appear there. And I'll pick that up in a moment and show you. I really love this glitter, or gold tinsel it's called, embossing powder. So you can see that shimmer there. Really happy with how that's come out. So now I'm going over some more plain white cardstock. I've just used my little powder pillow on that so that we don't get any excess embossing powder stuck onto that cardstock. I'm going over that Together stamp with the Versamark pad again, stamping it on, and now I'm going to tip that embossing powder all over, making sure I've got really good coverage, tapping off the excess, and now I'm ready to go with my heat gun again. So here we go. Now it's a little bit harder to see with the glitter embossing powder when that change happens, but you might be able to see there it goes all sparkly, and you can see a really subtle change, but it's really beautiful. So you can see there that lovely glittery shimmery gold. Just a little bit more. I'm just making sure I really have got all places melted properly there. And then I'm just going to grab my scissors and fussy cut that word out to use as my title on the page. Okay, so I've already cut that word out, and now I'm building my page. So this white cardstock, I had a couple of little black splatters. I've just used some black ink to make a couple of splatters on the background there. That spotty paper, I believe, is Kaisercraft. And the other papers I'm using, these are just offcuts that I've had from previous projects. The other strip, that yellow stripe and that pink, I think are both crepe paper papers. So I'm just trimming that down a little because I want to tuck it in behind that spot. Just using double-sided tape on the back of those pieces and tucking that in there, just so I've got a little bit of pink peeking out there. Okay, so I'm just going to sew a little strip of stitching along that spotty paper, and then I'll be able to continue on. Right, so my photos will go roughly in the center there. I've got my journaling strips already printed out, and I'm thinking the title will go that bottom left, and I want to build up a little embellishment cluster at the top of my photos there with that beautiful gold heart being the centerpiece. So I've got these roses, they're all crepe paper. That little clear butterfly is a really old Heidi Swap butterfly that I've had in my stash forever, but I absolutely love them still. And I've got a little black and white button, which is also crepe paper, that I'm going to stitch on there. And I'm just fiddling about making sure I'm happy with this placement before I start sticking everything down. Now I will do a couple more stamps on this page, but I'd like to stick things down first to make sure I'm stamping in the right place. So now I'm just layering that little yellow piece behind that photo, and then I'm going to layer the photos up and stick them down. So they don't have to be too straight. I'm just got a fun little angle with both photos there, and then they can go onto the page. And I'll grab my T-square ruler just to make sure I've got that roughly centered before I start sticking everything else down. Okay, so now I can start building those embellishments at the top there, and I'm going for a really layered sort of look, but I wanted to trim those excess leaves off because they would be tucked behind that first photo anyway. And you'll see a little bit later I'm going to use those leaves on the other side of the rose, or those flowers. Okay, so I'm tucking that little heart just under the corner of the photo there. Now you could use glue on the back of that heart to glue it down properly, but the way I'm sticking these things down, that heart is going to be held into place beautifully, so I'm not too worried about that. Okay, that little yellow heart, I've got a little foam square behind that to pop it off the page a little bit. I've got another little flower that I'm tucking in behind the heart there. And I'm just going, I realised I had it over the photo, but I want that another little touch of green on that side there. So just tucking that little tab in. And now those leaves can go to the left there. I think that just finishes off that little area nicely with that extra touch of green. Now that little butterfly I want to staple into place, but my tiny attacher didn't quite reach where I wanted it to go. So I'm just grabbing my long arm stapler to attach that to the page. Such a handy tool, this long arm stapler, when you're scrapbooking. Okay, so that's on there now. And I've got another chipboard sticker here that says big smiles, so that's going to go on there, but first I want to stamp in that spot, so I'm just going to leave that till a little bit later, and I'll add my title instead. And I'm just using some thin foam to put on the back of the title, just so that it's popping off the page a little bit. So I'm just trimming up little bits to fit on the back there. And you can see there I've got nice coverage of dots and other little square pieces. So that's going to go on there, but I do need to stamp in that spot as well. So I've chosen 2 stamps out of the Together stamp set to add to the page. Just getting all my bits organised. Okay, so I'm going to have You and Me and So Happy. So the You and Me stamp I'm going to put just underneath that title. So I'm going to just move that title out the way, and silly me, I've already taken the backing off those sticky bits, so I just have to pry it back off the page so that I can stamp that down. There we go, and it stamps beautifully. I love that you get a beautiful crisp image with these stamps. So the Together title can go on there now. Just making sure I've got all those little sticky dots in the right place. Okay, so the other stamp is So Happy, and I'm just stamping that to the top right of that gold heart, and then that other little sticker can go on, and that's also helping to keep that heart stuck down on the page. Alright, so I've got my journaling strips to go down below, and I've used my computer to print these out using my favourite font, the travelling typewriter font, and I'm just using some really thin double-sided tape on the back of those. So they can be stuck on there now, and I'm not trying to get these straight, I'm just sort of sticking them on any way they go down. I thought that one was too lined up with the other one, so I'm just moving that one slightly, and the last one can go on down below. Okay, next I've got that other little green tab that I want to tuck in to that bottom, those bottom strips down that bottom right corner there. It's a little bit off the page, but I'll show you. I'll just move that up in a second. There we go. And I'm just going to use I've folded it over, and my tiny attacher is just going to hold that in place. And then I'm just going to add another little gold heart to that as well. So we're almost finished now. I just need to add a little bit of stitching. I'm going to stitch along those journaling strips, and I'll add some stitching on each side of the photos as well, and then I'll hand stitch that button into place too, and I'm ready for the date. So I love that you can use these stamps to create your own embellishments for scrapbooking, and they're just so versatile. I can see I'll be doing so many things with that heart in particular. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing how this page has come together today. Please put any questions down below that you might like to ask, and I'll leave a link to the Neat and Tangled online store if you're interested in these. It's been fun guest designing for Neat and Tangled this month, and I'll have more to share very soon. Thanks for joining me, and bye for now.